Generational trauma support in social services, healing family patterns. Exploring how social services are evolving to support healing from multi-generational trauma and inherited family trauma with compassionate care. Understanding generational trauma support in social services. Hey, so I wanted to talk with you about something that often gets overlooked, but is super important in social services: support for generational trauma. You know how sometimes families struggle not just because of what's going on now, but because of stuff that happened decades ago? That's exactly what we're unpacking here. It's a topic that spans things like intergenerational trauma, ancestral trauma, family trauma, inherited trauma, transgenerational trauma, and multi-generational trauma. All these terms overlap and talk about the way trauma can ripple through generations. When we talk about social services, a lot of people imagine direct aid like food assistance, housing help, or therapy for an individual, and those are obviously essential. But the more I've worked with social services, the clearer it has become that many clients' challenges aren't just about current circumstances. They're tied to patterns passed down through their families. This could be emotional wounds from historical events like war, displacement, systemic racism, or poverty, but they manifest in very personal ways. Let's break it down. Intergenerational trauma focuses on how the psychological effects of trauma aren't just restricted to the person who experienced it originally, but can be passed down to children and grandchildren. Ancestral trauma is closely related, but emphasizes more the cultural or collective history, say, indigenous communities dealing with the impact of colonization and displacement. Inherited trauma highlights the biological and epigenetic influences, the way trauma can actually alter gene expression and potentially be inherited. Family trauma and transgenerational trauma sometimes get used interchangeably and point to how family systems carry forward pain, loss, and dysfunctional coping methods. Multi-generational trauma just stretches that timeline further, looking at multiple generations affected and the patterns that emerge over decades or even centuries. The big challenge for social services is that traditional support systems sometimes don't address these layered and long-term effects. Imagine someone dealing with depression or addiction, but when you peel back the layers, you find that decades of unresolved trauma in their family history shaped their struggles. Without recognizing those roots, help might only address the surface-level symptoms. That's why trauma-informed care models are becoming more popular in social work. They push practitioners to ask deeper questions about clients' histories, not just individuals, but their family legacies. It's about creating support systems that are compassionate and nuanced, incorporating cultural humility and recognizing systemic injustices that contributed to families' trauma. One really interesting resource I came across is a book called The Generational Algorithm. It's all about how we can rewrite emotional wounds passed down through generations with intentional strategies. The author blends research on inherited trauma with practical approaches for healing, which can be so helpful for social workers, counselors, and even people trying to understand their own family history. If you're curious to learn more about breaking these painful cycles and building healthier emotional legacies, you might want to consider checking it out yourself. Buy now on Amazon and see how rewriting the past can empower the future. At the end of the day, addressing generational trauma within social services means recognizing that healing isn't just a one-time fix. It's a journey that spans lifetimes and requires patience, resources, and understanding that what a person carries may be intertwined with family stories they never even lived firsthand. Whether you're working in social services or simply interested in mental health and healing, remembering this bigger picture can change how we approach support. It's about reconnecting with our histories, acknowledging the layers of pain, and moving forward with tools that actually resonate beyond just today's problems. Thanks for letting me share this with you. It's a topic I wish more folks talked about because it really changes the way we think about trauma and recovery.